Hey guys, it's been a little while. Hope you guys had a great Easter and a good little last week. We took couldn't seem to get back in the groove of things, but we did a few things, and so far I haven't been able to post them. I'm just still trying to figure out how. Hopefully I can get some help on that tomorrow, but I really enjoyed seeing some of the projects that all the projects that you guys have sent in. I'm going to figure out how to post them on our Google Classroom, so that everybody can enjoy them and see them. So I'm excited about our next book. Several teachers at school recommended it. Several in particular said that it was an amazing book. They probably would have even read it before reading the book, The Young Traveler's Gift. That was a great book in and of itself. So I'm going to read a little bit of the back cover of this book, and then we're going to go on and get into chapter 1. Timeless, flawless, exciting. Is eternal life a blessing or a curse? That is what young Winnie Foster must decide when she discovers a spring on her family's property whose waters grant immortality. Immortality means you don't die. When you're immortal, you don't die. Members of the Tuck family, having drunk from the spring, tell Winnie of their experiences watching life go by and never growing older. But then Winnie must decide whether or not to keep the Tuck's secret, and whether or not to join them on their never-ending journey. So I know some of you have you messaged me or emailed me or whatever, asking me to send you pictures of the book so that you can make sure a lot of you have ordered it or downloaded it. So we are going to start in chapter 1. I did read the prologue. You're more than welcome to go back and read the prologue. It just gives you a little bit of, just gives you a little bit of history before you get into the book, kind of like sets up everything. But we're just going to start on chapter 1. Chapter 1, Tuck Everlasting. The road that led to Tree Gap had been trod out long before by a herd of cows who were, to say the least, relaxed. It wandered along in curves and easy angles, swayed off and up in a pleasant tangent to the top of a small hill, ambled down again between fringes of bee-hung clover, and then cut sideways across a meadow. Here its edges blurred. It widened and seemed to pause, suggesting tranquil, bovine picnics, slow chewing and thoughtful contemplation of the infinite. And then it went on again and came at last to the wood. But on reaching the shadows of the first trees, it veered sharply, swung out in a wide arc as if for the first time it had reason to think where it was going, and passed around. On the other side of the wood, the sense of easiness dissolved. The road no longer belonged to the cows. It became instead, and rather abruptly, the property of people. And all at once the sun was uncomfortably hot, the dust oppressive, and the meager grass along its edges somewhat ragged and forlorn. On the left stood the first house, a square and solid cottage with a touch-me-not appearance, surrounded by grass cut painfully to the quick, and enclosed by a capable iron fence some 4 feet high, which clearly said, "Move on. We don't want you here." So the road went humbly by and made its way, past cottages more and more frequent, but less and less forbidding, into the village. But the village doesn't matter, except for the jailhouse and the gallows. The first house only is important. The first house, the road, and the wood. There was something strange about the wood. If you look of the first house, suggested that you better pass it by. So did the look of the wood, but for quite a different reason. The house was so proud of itself that you wanted to make a lot of noise as you passed, maybe even throw a rock or two. But the wood had a sleeping, otherworld appearance, that made you want to speak in whispers. This, at least, is what the cows must have thought. Let it keep its peace. We won't disturb it. Whether the people felt that way about the wood or not is difficult to say. There were some, perhaps, who did, but for the most part, the people followed the road around the wood because that was the way it led. There was no road through the wood, and anyway, for the people, there was no other reason to leave the wood to itself. It belonged to the Fosters, the owners of the Touch-Me-Not cottage, and was therefore private property in spite of the fact that it lay outside the fence and was perfectly accessible. The ownership of land is an odd thing when you come to think of it. How deep, after all, can it go? If a person owns a piece of land, does he own it all the way down in ever-narrowing dimensions till it meets all other pieces at the center of the earth? Or does its ownership consist only of a thin crust under which the friendly worms have never heard of trespassing? In any case, the wood, being on top, except of course for its roots, was owned, bud and bough, by the Fosters in the Touch-Me-Not cottage, and if they never went there, if they never wandered in among the trees, well, that was their affair. Winnie, the child of the house, never went there, though she sometimes stood inside the fence, carelessly banging a stick against the iron bars and looked at it. But she never had been curious about it. Nothing ever seems interesting when it belongs to you, only when it doesn't. And what is interesting, anyway, about the slim few acres of trees, they will be a dimness shot through the bars of sunlight, a great many squirrels and birds, a deep, damp mattress of leaves on the ground, and all the other things just as familiar, if not so pleasant, like the spiders, thorns, and grubs. In the end, however, it was the cows who were responsible for the wood's isolation, and the cows, through some wisdom they were not wise enough to know that they possessed, were very wise indeed. If they had made their road through the wood instead of around it, then the people would have followed the road. The people would have noticed the giant ash tree in the center of the wood, and then in time, they noticed the little spring bubbling up among its roots, in spite of the pebbles piled there to conceal it. That would have been a disaster so immense that this weary old earth, owned or not to its fiery core, would have trembled on its axis like a beetle on a pin. So far, we have a cottage that lures people in, but it's so neat and pristine that nobody ever wants to enter it. Even the people who own it don't want to enter it. And there's a lot of land around the house from what we can understand. But even the cows, there's woods behind the house, and even the cows don't enter those woods. But they were saying at the end of the chapter that if the cows did, then the cows going back and forth through those woods would have created a road, and that would have been a disastrous occurrence for the people there and the people of the town around there. It said it would have spun the earth on its axis. So there's a spring there that we're going to learn about. From the back of the book, we can tell that the spring has some sort of magical powers, right? And a tree, an odd-looking old tree in the middle of the woods. So maybe those things will be related somehow down the road. Again, I'm reading the book with you, so I don't know what's going to happen in chapter 2. I read it shortly before you do every day, because of course I have to read it and then download it. But you guys, I've missed y'all. I'm super excited about this book. Chapter 2 was short. Probably could have read it, but I like to keep things kind of suspenseful. So maybe tomorrow we'll read 2 and 3. We'll just have to see. But I missed you guys. Looking forward to the book. You guys have a good day. get some sun, go outside, play a little bit, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.